Why have we come to earth? Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
Good morning again. I have a fairly deep and serious talk, but I thought I was reading this morning the 40-day meditation from the 40-day Mind Fast and Soul Feast, and I thought we would start off with that, if that's all right with you, and even if it's not, because I'm just going to anyways. Laugh the laugh of Buddha. The quote is from Jean Houston: "At the height of laughter, the universe is flung into a kaleidoscope of new possibilities." And the reading is, "As you mature spiritually, your natural gifts of the soul rise to the surface and express through personality, which is your own divine individuality. This allows you to appreciate your divinity, including the quirks that are uniquely your own way of moving in the world. You develop the ability to not take yourself so seriously, to laugh at yourself. Then energy is freed up, the endorphins rush, and the life force harmoniously flows through you. The ego loses its tight grip on your concerns about how others see you and how the world is totaling up its evaluation of you. Your readiness and willingness to release your tight hold on the ego, to drop your all-caught-upness. I love that word, all-caught-upness. Michael's good at inventing new words. And laugh at yourself creates a gap through which we may see ourselves more clearly. The reactive mind slows down, clarity arises. More of life, love, and joy can then move through you and emit from you. I love the image of the laughing Buddha. Looking at or visualizing it causes a welling up of joy in my mind. Buddha mind sees clearly through the appearance of humanity's hypnotic ignorance to the clear light of being. It sees what sociologist Peter Alberger described when saying, the final illusion is power, while laughter is the final truth. Today, know with me that humor is a gateway to wisdom. Walk through it and you will master a spiritual skill that will create space between you and the fictional character you call yourself. It will put the smile of Buddha that is in your soul upon your face. And our affirmation is, the cosmic laughter of spirit bathes my soul in joy. I see with clear seeing, and all that I do is from the pure joy of being. Edwin Gaines, who's a wonderful spiritual teacher, unity minister, talks about having a purpose. And when we know our purpose, that we do our purpose with great passion as though the entire world depended on it, while realizing at the same time it doesn't. Isn't that a great way to be? So you're out there passionately doing it, but at the same time having the levity, having the balance to remember that no, the whole world doesn't. This is what I've been talking about recently about transition of life or transformational life. Where in the transformational life, we realize that in spirit, all is well. It looks like the human condition is such and such, and it always has. You know, Dennis Waitley used to walk around with who was a motivational speaker, used to walk around with a newspaper, the London Times, that said, "World about to go dark. Whale blubber supply almost gone." Okay? And so we've always had a crisis of the world about to go dark, right? You know, I mean, Daniel talks about it in the Bible. The Revelations is all about, Jesus is coming back then, not next year, but back then. And so we've always had these end times consciousness in our mind. So right now we have an end times consciousness in our mind. We'll talk about that a little bit today. But the actual talk is called Peace and Prosperity. And so originally I was going to do peace because we were lining up for the World Peace Meditation. And Reverend Sue always, is concerned that people will show up on, well, she says people do show up on January 1st, New Year's Day for the World Peace Meditation, and just wants to make sure that everybody knows it's actually December 31st, the day before New Year's Eve morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. So if you'll join her then. But since we talked about peace also last week as the last Sunday of Advent, I decided to talk about peace and prosperity as a way to end the year and to launch into the new year. So I love this definition of peace that comes from the Nigerian peace activist Hafsat Abiola. And she says, peace comes from being able to contribute the best that we have and all that we are toward creating a world that supports everyone. Let me say that again. Peace comes from being able to contribute the best that we have and all that we are toward creating a world that supports everyone. But it is also securing the space for others to contribute the best that they have and all that they are. So this idea of peace is not just, I got myself together. It's also, and now I take that out and support others in also being able to create a world that works for them. So last week we looked at what keeps us from peace. And the core thing that keeps us from peace is our belief in separation. We believe that we're separate from God, we believe that we're separate from our good, and we believe that we're separate from each other. When I believe that I'm separate from my God, I believe also that I'm separate from myself, my capital S self. Because God and I are one. And if I don't believe that, if I forget that, if I'm operating from that, then I lose the I that I am. And if I believe that I'm separate from you, then I lose the you. And this you and I, which seems to exist on the level of individualization, that we have, the game that we've chosen to play here on earth, of being aware that there is a difference between myself and each of you, while at the same time remembering that there is an underlying unity between myself and each of you. Okay? And so if we don't get the unity part of it, we find the separation pretty easily, right? We find the differentiation. We can focus on the differences a lot. You ever notice? Okay? We forget the unification. That underneath that, there's this deep underlying unity. And so when we start operating from that, then we start operating in our world from a sense of hurt, fear, and anger. And out of that, we start to believe in conflict and confrontation. And so that moves us out of peace. Sharif Abdullah, in Creating a World That Works for All, says, right now the most widespread tools of social change on our planet include bullets and bombs. Regardless of the delivery system, a B-52 bomber dropping cruise missiles or a suicide bomber on a crowded bus, the primary method of changing consciousness is to silence those who disagree. Take a breath. So as we observe this in our outer world, that there's this significant percentage of the population of the planet that believes the best way to create social change is to silence those who disagree with us, we have to also look and say, where does this live within me? Because if it's out there, this is where it gets uncomfortable, it's also in me, okay? And so what parts of me do I silence? What parts of me do I bomb into silence? I don't want to hear from you at all. And so just noticing that. Can I listen to that part? What parts of me do I close off because they disturb my worldview? See, I know how the world works. I got it all right. It works my way, right? And you should all work my way. And most of us operate that way. Okay? See, Cynthia wants a puppy. And she shouldn't. She shouldn't want a puppy. I don't want a puppy, so she shouldn't want a puppy. I have a few friends who are disagreeing with me on that. But anyways, one of them is sitting right there. But we run the world based on, we think the whole world should operate the way that we think it should operate. Okay? It doesn't. Have you noticed? So the question to ask with this is, am I willing and do I live in the practice of oneness? Not am I just aware, kind of, yeah, I heard it on Sunday, that's a pretty good idea. Do I live in the practice of oneness? When I'm looking at my ex-spouse, when I'm looking at that political person on TV that I don't like, when I'm looking at, many of us just got through with dealing with our families for Christmas, right? When I'm looking at this family member that I've had a challenge with for my whole life, can I remember my oneness? I don't have to necessarily like them, but can I remember that that person and I are one? Can I remember that and start to live from that? Do I not only practice peace for myself, do I also ask, how can I secure peace for others? Am I living in true peace, or am I just comfortable because my life is pretty good and pretty much together? Take a breath. So this brings us to looking at prosperity. Mary Morrissey tells us that prosperity is being comfortable enough to create what we want. And I like that definition, being comfortable enough to create what we want. When we're not comfortable, when we're living in a state of discomfort, we can't create what we want. We're living instead in neediness and fear once again. When we have a healthy level of prosperity, we can create what it is we want. We have a space within us. We have a relaxed nature within us. We have the ability to recognize each other and to create good. When we're not living in that level of prosperity, then we live in fear, we live in neediness, and we live in a frustration of our authentic creativity. And by the way, prosperity, as you might guess, doesn't mean a certain level of money. Because I've met, and you've all met, people who have tons of money, but are not living in their authentic creativity, which is the soul joy, the soul prosperity. So prosperity is, can I truly create and be the person that I came here to be? And so for some people, that's a certain level of money. For some people, that's a completely different level of money. And for some people, it has nothing to do with money at all. It has to do with the freedom to be able to create. So that's that prosperity. And when we don't have it, we live in a separation from knowing our oneness. And so we are not living in peace. So we move into both peace and prosperity by aligning with the universe. The 9th century Sufi mystic Mansur al-Hallaj, excuse me if I butchered that, says, "There is nothing left of me. I'm like a ruby held up to the sunrise. Is it still a stone or a world made of redness? It has no resistance to sunlight." Am I like a ruby? Am I like a jewel that allows the light of spirit, the light within me, to transmit through, uniquely shaped and colored by who I am? Each stone is different, isn't it? Each jewel is different. A little bit different color, a little bit different shape, just like each of us. Or am I like a stone that's opaque and allows no light through? Which one do I want to be? Can I allow that light of spirit to shine through us? And so we have our own unique way. Or are we the rock that blocks the sunlight? Heat and pressure are what clarifies the stone. You know, a lot of us like comfortable lives where we're not put under pressure or jiggled around at all. And yet, unfortunately, like it or not, it's that heat and pressure that purifies the stones. So are we willing to put ourselves in the place where we experience some heat and pressure? And what that means is we have to get us outside of our comfort zones, right? So are we willing to do that? Are we willing to play with that? Am I willing to get out of my comfort zone and become more transparent? So prosperity can work as peace as we combine the two. I took the statement from Hafsat and modified it a little bit. See how this reads for you. Prosperity allows us to be able to contribute the best we have and all that we are toward creating a world that supports everyone. It also allows us to secure the space for others to contribute the best they have and all that they are. Our prosperity isn't just for us. Our prosperity is for the world. Our prosperity is first for ourselves, but also for everyone else. Can we support? Can we not just have enough that, hey, I got mine, I'm good, but can we have enough that we also then reach out and support others in also having enough and creating their own good? Our true peace and prosperity begins within us, but it isn't complete until it affects all of us. So we are the starting point of the prosperity. Our consciousness is the starting point of the prosperity. All that we teach here in religious science, that I am one with God, is the starting point, but do we allow it to then, once we get it, once we're grounded in that to a healthy degree, and we're not sitting there like the sword sharpeners, continuing to sharpen our swords to microscopic sharpness and then keeping on going, are we then willing to reach out and allow ourselves to support others as they create new towns, as we collectively together create that path to the new town? And we need to create a path to the new town, don't we? If we look in the world right now, that new town is necessary. So in 2016, we're going to be looking at the theme, Creating a World That Works for All. We're going to be working with Sharif Abdullah's book, Creating a World That Works for All. And that's going to be the theme that we work with for the entire year. How can we both ground ourselves in true principles, spiritual principles, science mind principle, and then take that out into making a better world and supporting others and having lives that work for themselves also. So we're going to be playing with that. And it's not a case of, well, we've kind of already talked about that. It's not a case of, I've already got mine together, I've already taken all the classes I need to take, I don't need to take any more. What if I took a class in the same class I've taken before with the consciousness of, and how does that affect me now, even though I took it years ago, how does that affect me now, and how can I use what I'm learning here to reach out into the world? How can I do that? How can I take it from a different point of view? So I invite us this year to be willing to stretch and grow, to be willing to engage in a deeper exploration of who we are than we have before. One of the ways we're doing this is if you have taken one of our classes before, one of our certificated classes, and you would like to repeat it, it's only half price. I'm not sure if that's even on the registration forms, but it is half price. So I just want to let you know that. So this week, just two homework things, two spiritual practices. Number one, align with my own peace and prosperity. And I do that by practicing, and I do that by aligning with living from the principles. Am I living from the principles of peace and prosperity? Will I align with those principles? And then second, ask, where can I bring greater peace and prosperity into the world? How can I be an agent of peace and prosperity? How can I be an agent of peace and prosperity in the world? And am I willing to go deeper than before? So that's your spiritual practice. Are you willing to play with that this week? Right? Good. I want to refer back to the sword story that was the opening reading. The sword is the story of the heart. The sword in the story, is the heart. So as people are sharpening their swords, they're perfecting their hearts, they're getting their hearts more clear. So the path is the way to a new, healthier society. And we're all wanting that. The sword sharpeners attend every workshop and retreat, purchase every new self-help book, learn whatever mantra is currently being touted, all in the effort to sharpen the already fine edge of their hearts. They give little thought to what a well-honed heart might be for. What are our spiritual principles? What are all the classes that we take for? Those who ignore our responsibility to create a world that works for all fall easily into the self-absorption and holier-than-thou attitudes of exclusivity. Those who are on the path, such as social activists and environmentalists, have dedicated their lives to changing the existing system. They spend their days attacking the system, protesting injustices, fighting for social, environmental, and other causes. They have not seen that the principal tool to produce change, that change, is compassion. And it must be refined if it is to be capable of performing its task. Many are motivated more by anger at what is wrong than expectant joy at what could be right. If they actually get to the new town, it will look to them a lot like the one they have left behind, for they carry the spirit of the old town in their hearts. We have a teaching that supports the development of our hearts and our minds and our spirit and our consciousness. Are we willing to not only live from that teaching, but then to put that teaching in practice to help create a world that works for all? Not just by giving a pair of shoes or donating a little money or a little food to an agency, but to take that principle, to take what it is that we do and actually move it out into the world to support other people in creating lives that work for themselves. See, giving a pair of shoes is the old giving a fish. Teaching spiritual principle is teaching the person to fish so that they can take care of themselves. And are we willing to find ways this coming year, and this is what the question we're going to be exploring. I know Reverend Mary and I and the practitioners and other ministers have been talking about this and exploring how are we going to make this work? How can we take this out and apply it in greater and greater ways? And it doesn't mean inviting everybody to come here to this church, but it does mean how can we take these principles and move them into people's lives who have never heard them before, who have never been exposed to them before, so they can start to share some of the same values and same principles that have helped us to create lives that work pretty darn well. So that's why I invite you to sit with and join us with in consciousness this coming year, is that question and to find that answer and to allow people to help to move into this new town with a sense of joy and with a sense of power. So let's move into prayer. I know that there is one infinite presence, one power, one love, one joy. That presence is all that there is. That presence is all there is. And as we recognize that, we recognize that each of us and each and every person we encounter, each and every situation we encounter, is one of the infinite presence of God, and therefore has God shining through it, waiting to be revealed. And so I speak my word that whether we encounter a ruby of great purity or a stone of great density, we still recognize the God-light that is within and shining through that individual. We open ourselves to go deeper in our spiritual practice than ever before, to move past the how can I have my own, how can just our center be okay, and move into how can we create a world, a city, a county, a community that works for all. And so I speak my word that we let go of some of the smallness and some of the disagreements, the disillusionments that have held us back in the past. And that with that love, with that openness, with that clarity, we move forward into that light of love, into that power of truth, into that understanding, and into that joy. And for this I'm grateful. For each person who's saying yes to this, I'm grateful. For all the good that comes from just being willing to go there, I am ever so grateful. Because as we are willing, even if we don't know the how just yet, as we are willing to go, the how reveals itself. And so today we take the first step of that journey by simply saying yes. Yes to creating a world that works for all in a far better way than ever before. Yes to peace and prosperity within us, and supporting that being the truth all around us. And in that sense of gratitude, I release this word into a law that moves it into form, moves it into expression, moves it into experience in our human lives, in our human form, in this world, right here and right now. And so it does, and so it is. Thank you.
love.